Hello friends, in this video we are going to discover the top 10 cheapest states to live in America for 2023. Struggling to make ends meet? Broke as a joke? That's probably because you either spend too much money or it's really expensive where you live. There are some places in the country where you can earn a lot of money and still feel poor. We're talking San Francisco or New York City, where a 2-bedroom apartment costs over $4,000 a month on average. Well, thank God we don't have to live there. Instead, we can choose to live in some of the cheapest places in the country, where a dollar of income goes way further than the big cities mentioned earlier. Take Tennessee, the cheapest state in the country this year according to MIT's living wage data. Today, we're going to talk about the cheapest, or most affordable, places you can live in America. These places are going to be cheap for a reason. A family of 2 adults and 1 child requires $78,800 to reach a living wage in Tennessee. That's almost 30% cheaper than Massachusetts, where it takes $121,414 to reach a living wage. Kindly make sure to hit the subscribe button and press the bell icon before we start this video about the 10 cheapest states to live in America. Now let's dig deeper into each of the top 10 cheapest states to live in America. Number 10 on the list of cheapest states to live in America is Utah. The cost of living in Utah is about 5.5% lower than the US average, which makes it the 10th cheapest state in the United States. The average home value in Utah is about $300,000 per the most recent census, which is actually pretty good considering America as a whole. Rent is also very affordable in Utah relative to the country as a whole. The cheaper places to live within Utah include Price, Utah, which has the lowest home prices in the state, and Piute County, which is the county with the lowest home prices. Our rankings for 2022 had Hiram outside of Ogden as the most affordable place to live in Utah. So if you're looking for a cheap place to live within a cheap state, check out Hiram as your possible next destination. Number 9 on the list of cheapest states to live in America is Oklahoma. The 9th most affordable state for 2023 is Oklahoma based on the most recent set of living wage data. The living wage takes into account the cost of living via childcare, taxes, utilities, and, most importantly, housing costs. In Oklahoma, housing is cheap, hence their 9th place ranking this year. The overall cost of living is 6.1% lower than the US average. Some of the more affordable metros include the Tulsa area and Adair County. In fact, Adair County has the cheapest housing in the state per the most recent census data. Our data shows that Anadarko is the cheapest place to live, some 50 miles outside of Oklahoma City. Number 8 on the list of cheapest states to live in America is Kentucky. Our next cheapest place to live isn't too far away, as we take a spin in Kentucky. I have a feeling we're going to be in the South a lot for this trip. Here in Kentucky, housing costs are actually the 3rd lowest in the entire nation behind Arkansas and West Virginia. It's relatively more expensive for food than other states on this list, and for some reason, childcare costs in Kentucky are a little more expensive, at about $523 a month. Life is slow in Kentucky, so if you want cheap and a whole lot of rolling hills, then this is your place. You can probably get a trailer and get a job down at Ramsey's. Sounds like a great life to me. Of course, the dating scene down in Kentucky is challenging. Number 7 on the list of cheapest states to live in America is South Carolina. Buckle up, because we're heading to South Carolina. Here in the Palmetto State, the cost of living is really inexpensive. Cheap childcare and food makes things doable. However, the South Carolina is the 16th cheapest when it comes to housing costs. In fact, housing costs are the highest for any other state on this list. Part of that is because the awesome coastline skews the numbers. South Carolina has perhaps the best coastline in the nation. But the rest of the state? Not very stimulating. In South Carolina, the average home sells for about $250,000. Not too shabby. Now, if you lived in, say, Egypt, where it's only $27,000 for a house. Or, in Antarctica, where a house is free. Did you know in Hong Kong, you spend half your money on housing? You spend 49% of your income on a place to live in China and Taiwan. Number 6 on the list of cheapest states to live in America is South Dakota. We're gonna ride the rails all the way up to our next cheapest state, South Dakota. In South Dakota, a family can get by pretty comfortably on about $4,200 a month in income. Housing and food will cost you about $1,300 a month total. Not too bad at all. But the real kicker is there's no income taxes in South Dakota. This means South Dakota has the lowest taxes in America. Sure beats New York, where people spend about $1,000 a month in taxes alone. Yuck. Of course, it is South Dakota. But with all your extra savings here, you can go out and buy up all of the biorax and pheasants and walleye and chislic you want? What is this stuff? This is what South Dakotans eat. Number 5 on the list of cheapest states to live in America is Arkansas. It's time we check out our 5th cheapest state in which to live, Arkansas, giving the South a clean 1-2 sweep of the cheapest states to live. Don't everyone jump up at once. Okay, so it's Arkansas, but what did you expect? You get what you pay for here, which isn't a lot either way. Like we mentioned with Mississippi, the core necessities in Arkansas are as cheap as you can find in America. An Arkansasian can make about $48,000 a year and spends only about $708 a month on rent or mortgages. That's probably half what you spend. And that's also the lowest housing costs in America. However, the reason it's the second cheapest place to live is people earn the second lowest salaries in America, so if you want to move here to moving on up in the world, you'd better make another plan. Number 4 on the list of cheapest states to live in America is Indiana. Here in Indiana, the living wage is about $52,000 a year. That means that if you make this amount of money each year, as a household, you can live comfortable enough. Sure, you'll have to work until you're 70 and you probably won't have a big old boat, but at least you won't be on welfare. And the housing costs in Indiana are about $9,600 a year. That means your mortgage or rent payments will be about $800 a month. Not too shabby if you ask me. In comparison, in our most expensive state to live, California, you need to make about $68,000 a year to live a decent life. And believe you me, that's nowhere near enough. Try living in San Francisco on $68,000 a year and you'll be renting a bedroom in the Tenderloin district with a window that looks out on a sidewalk with poop on it. The living wage for the city of San Francisco is $89,000. That's just to get by without struggling. That's the most expensive place you can live in the US. Number 3 on the list of cheapest states to live in America is Alabama. The Alabama tide rolls into the 3rd cheapest state spot for 2022. Relatively high taxes and medical care for the South prevented the state from appearing higher on our list. Here in Alabama, the living wage is about $50,000, or about $25 an hour. And if both people work, then you each only really need minimum wage jobs to live a decent life in the heart of Dixie. If it wasn't for the higher than average taxes here, and above average healthcare costs, Alabama would be in the top 5 for sure. Number 2 on the list of cheapest states to live in America is Mississippi. Our second cheapest state in America is Mississippi. Like the other cheap states, food and personal necessities are very cheap here, actually the cheapest you'll find in America. The most affordable place in the cheapest state would be Aberdeen. Here in the Magnolia State, the cost to rent or buy is about $795 a month. That's really low. It also costs far cheaper here for food, childcare, healthcare, and every other care you can name. And, of note, Mississippi has by far the cheapest childcare costs of any other state, even $150 a month less than Arkansas. You can be daddy warbucks around here if you bring in anything over $50K. Now, some people might say, it's Mississippi. Why would I want to live there? There's a reason it's so cheap. Number 1 on the list of cheapest states to live in America is Tennessee. Welcome to the wonderfully cheap, except Nashville, state of Tennessee. We're back to some southern living. Taxes? Really low. Food costs? Really low. Housing costs are slightly higher than most of the other places on this list at about $810 a month, but that's still really low for most people watching this video, wishing their mortgage payment was $810. However, it must be mentioned that Tennessee, overall, perhaps surprisingly, is one of the most dangerous states in the nation. Especially Memphis, which is one of the more dangerous big cities in America. If you move to Tennessee to start a better life and downsize, make sure you know where you're moving or we might not ever hear from you again. So, which is your favorite places among the top 10 cheapest states to live in America? Well, that's all we have for you today. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the content of this video, click the subscribe button so you can receive more content like this. Post your favorite places among the top 10 cheapest states to live in America in the comments below. I'd love to read them and I'm sure others would too.